In South Africa, local government elections will be held next year, and we're checking in with the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa, the IEC, tonight. Party funding is a big issue ahead of that election. The political party funding bill, which requires political parties to disclose their funders, was gazetted by the President earlier, but the Act is awaiting implementation. We're joined now by Chief Electoral Officer Mamabola. Mr. Mamabola, thank you for being with us as always. Let's start with the funding. I mean, can you explain this to lay people? We have a law that says parties have to tell us where they get their funds from, but it's not implemented yet, so they don't have to. Is that correct?
Well, there is no implementation date that has been determined. The determination of the implementation date is the exclusive preserve of the President of the Republic. So it's a matter that is within the domain of the President.
Are you willing to comment on reports that the President is facing a pushback from some within the ANC, some members, due to concerns about the bill? And we know that politicians across parties, in fact, some of them don't want this bill.
Well, as the Electoral Commission, we are not aware of any pushbacks, so we are unable to offer comment in that regard.
Okay, so does the delay affect you, your preparation at all for the local government elections?
We see the matters, although they have a quasi-relationship, but they're in fact not interdependent, because the elections for the municipal councils that are due next year will proceed on the basis of the exclusion of the term of the present municipal councils, which term ends on the 1st of August next year. So those elections have got to proceed, given the constitutional determination that the term of municipal councils is 5 years. Yeah. So on the other hand, the Party Funding Act is an independent piece of legislation, although it does have a bearing on the political landscape.
So like you say, it does have a bearing on the political landscape. It'll give me and you and every voter in this country more information on where the parties are getting their funds. We also know it'll restrict them from taking money from foreign donors, from state-owned entities, for example. So what's your personal opinion? I mean, do you want this implemented as soon as possible?
Well, to the extent that the Party Funding Act it's a statute of the Republic, we as the agency that has been entrusted to implement it by Parliament, we stand ready to fulfill the charge that we've been given by Parliament. So it's not a matter of choice really for us, because we've been entrusted the responsibility by the lawmaking body of the Republic.
Yeah. But I mean, do you think personally it would be a good thing if it came into effect soon?
Certainly, to the extent that the Act seeks to have a situation where there is transparency in the private funding of political parties, it would be a needed impetus to strengthening electoral democracy in the country, and to that extent, of course, it would be welcome.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. Mamabolo, how much preparation has been done for these local government elections? We know that you start preparing for years in advance. Are you on track, or has COVID-19 put a bit of a spanner in the works this year?
COVID-19 has indeed put a spanner in the works. No sector of society has escaped the impact of COVID-19. On the electoral front, it has occasioned delay on the handover of the finally determined wards by the Municipal Demarcation Board to the Electoral Commission. As matters stand, we've received final wards in respect of 109 municipalities, and the outstanding wards will only be received at the end of next month, at the end of November. So the technical work around the configuration of voting districts still has to be done, and a registration we can be prepared for. But other than that, the other elements of the preparations are ongoing and are on track. We have a bill now before Parliament, and that bill is an essential component of our preparation. We've already commenced with the procurement processes for the material that we need to undertake a registration weekend, and plans are afoot to articulate our communication strategy for that election and so on. So despite the negative impact of COVID-19, work has continued, and we should be able to recover sufficiently ahead of the time that will be determined for the elections.
Okay, and like you said, local government elections will go ahead. Before we let you go, I mean, this is all up in the air. The WHO says it'll prepare guidelines for running elections under COVID-19, but sort of middle of next year, we don't know how things will look. Maybe a vaccine will be all over the place. Maybe we'll all be back to normal, or maybe there'll be all these hoops because of social distancing and things like that. Does that make it very difficult to plan, or are you already thinking about a safe election next year?
No, we assume that we were going to have this election in the context of the pandemic. For we don't know what the trajectory is actually going to be. So it is important, therefore, that in our planning we take account of the fact that the pandemic itself might still be ravaging. To that extent, we've been in discussions with political parties, we've been in discussions with the Department of Health to agree on a minimum set of measures that are required to be implemented in the voting stations to obviate the possibility of those voting stations serving as a point of contagion for the virus.
All right. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was Chief Electoral Officer Mamabola.